Switching to Geico is a good idea, especially when you consider everything.
First off, Geico makes it easy to switch. They have licensed agents available 24/7 online or over the phone.
But if it's so easy, you might start thinking everything is easy, even big wave surfing. And it's not. It's actually quite difficult.
Well, if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds on car insurance. And you could keep saving by bundling your motorcycle, boat, and RV, plus your home or renter's insurance.
But saving money might lead you to make some questionable purchases, like a 20-foot feather boa. And do you know how hard it is to clean a 20-foot feather boa?
Well, they do have an industry-leading mobile app you can use to pay your bill, file and manage a claim, or add a new driver.
But when life gets a little easier, it makes you too confident, and you start calling everyone Ace. And you're better than that.
Well, Geico has a 97% customer satisfaction rating and has been saving people money for 85 years. It's hard to beat that.
But you're right.
Switch to Geico. It's obviously a good idea.
Welcome to Inside the Criminal Mind podcast, where we analyze some of the most notorious criminal cases with psychology and criminology combined. Here's your host, Dr. Carlos.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, our serial killer goes by the name of the Castilian killer or the raping Quixote. His name is Joaquin Ventura. He's an incarcerated Spanish abductor, rapist, and later a serial killer who murdered 5 women in the Spanish province of Castellón. He was born in 1963, and his first crime took place around August 6, 1989, when he deliberately ran over an 18-year-old female motorcyclist. The crash was non-fatal, but the victim broke her ankle. Fernandez exited his car and approached the woman, feigning apology and inviting her into his vehicle in order, he claimed, to drive her to the hospital. Once inside, he drove her to an isolated area and raped her. Before subsequently abandoning her near the hospital, Fernandez was identified by another motorist who had witnessed the collision. He was then arrested and sentenced to 14 years in prison for this crime. For the duration of his incarceration, he shared his cell with another criminal who had killed his wife. After his release, Fernandez would imitate the MO of his cellmate in his own murders. In 1995, he was paroled following a campaign by his friends and family that claimed his innocence and decried his internment as unjust. Upon his release, Fernandez moved to Castellón de la Plana with his mother and worked in a car insurance company. His co-workers described him as absolutely normal, polite, and charming. So right now, we got indications of possibly an antisocial personality disorder, but mostly psychopath right now. First murder was Sonia Arufat, a 25-year-old English teacher, who was last seen at 5 in the morning on July 2nd, 1995, leaving a Banakisium disco that she had attended with friends. She intended to walk the 1-kilometer distance between the disco and her parents' apartment, but she never reached her destination. Her body was found by a motorist on November 20th, hidden in thick bushes near the road between Benicium and Ropesa del Mar. She was half-dressed, with her hands tied and her mouth covered with duct tape. So here you can see he's going to want to see the fear out of this person because he doesn't want them to escape. He doesn't want them to fight back, but he wants to be able to witness that fear. He doesn't care about this individual, leaves him half-dressed, but then hides the body. So he's an organized killer. Obviously, he had the equipment to also do some of this stuff, meaning the tape and whatever he had. I don't know what he tied her hands with, maybe zip ties. The following year, in 1996, a 22-year-old, so we have a 25-year-old, now we have a 22-year-old who disappeared. She, too, was last seen at a disco. Her half-dressed body, also with her hands tied, was found in a pond. So again, same MO, same victimology so far. Her murder was not immediately linked to Fernandez due to the similarities between the victims and the perpetrator's MO. In February 1998, Fernandez attempted to repeat his 1989 attack, he's 26 years of age, on another female motorist, but the victim fought back and escaped through biting his finger. She was able to give police a full description as well as part of his car plate. With this information, the Spanish police launched an operation to monitor Fernandez. They noticed that he regularly visited an area of Castellón called Las Cipresas, where there was a huge concentration of discos and nightclubs, so he knew who he was targeting. And that while there, he acted strangely as he was stalking different women in order to identify a potential victim, trying something to fit in with his fantasies. A lot of these serial killers choose their victims based on their fantasies. That's why sometimes people misinterpret or misunderstand serial killers. I think they're just going to kill everybody. In reality, they don't. They have a certain fantasy that they try to, how would you say, fulfill, satisfy in some capacity to see if it brings them the same arousal does the same killing in real life bring the same arousal as their fantasies. So if it doesn't match up, they're not really worried about it. Now, of course, if you impede them, that might be a different story. It is believed that Ferendes never knew any of his victims personally, but that he watched them for a long period before attacking them. Ferendes attempted another attack in July 1998, where he deflated the tire of a woman's car before she left a nearby nightclub. The woman suffered a non-fatal car crash, but Ferendes could not abduct her as he had intended. This incident was witnessed by the police officers who arrested Ferendes in his office a few days later, and a parallel search of his home found the roll of duct tape that he used to gag Sonia Rubio, the first victim, tying him to the first crime. Ferendes initially admitted to the rape of 2 women, but he denied involvement in any of the murders. He was charged with Rubio's abduction, sexual assault, and murder. By October 21st, however, he had admitted to killing Rubio, Garcia, and 3 prostitutes, whose bodies were found in a riverbank near Villa Real. We know that already from listening to this podcast, that they target a lot of prostitutes. Natalia Arkelos Oloria, Mercedes Velia Ayala, and Francis Leon. These 3 murders have been investigated as related to each other, but had not been linked to the murders of Rubio Garcia, and a truck driver had been suspected originally. Several psychiatric evaluations of Ferendes diagnosed him as a psychopath, as I mentioned earlier. That's kind of the way it was. You can kind of tell by his planning and by his charm, I guess, that he had. The prosecutors requested 160 years with a recommendation that Ferendes be never paroled again. In addition, they also petitioned that the state be named secondarily responsible for not keeping Ferendes under the necessary surveillance after he was released from prison. On January 2000, Ferendes was found guilty of 5 counts of murder. He was sentenced to 69 years in prison and to compensate the families with $130 million. So again, we saw some of the signs of a classic psychopath. What kind of upbringing? We don't really know. But I did want to give you kind of an international touch here again of serial killers. As we look at serial killers around the world, unfortunately the data becomes more complicated to get, at least their childhood data for some of these international serial killers. But you can see the psychopathy is pretty universal in their criteria, and the MOs of serial killers are pretty universal as well. That's it for now.
Savings starts with Xfinity. Get a great price on Xfinity Internet. Plus, ask how to get an eligible 5G phone on us. And for a limited time, $300 back when you add Xfinity Mobile. Go to Xfinity.com/start saving. Call 1-800-XFINITY or visit a store today. Restrictions apply.
Streaming only on Peacock.
She was this moneyed, social girl.
Ghislaine Maxwell had it all until she met Jeffrey Epstein.
Maxwell helped connect him to the wealthy and famous.
Then it all came crashing down.
Ghislaine Maxwell's charged with enticement of minors, sex trafficking of children, and perjury.
Now a new 3-part documentary reveals her story.
How on earth could she have got to this place?
Epstein's Shadow, Ghislaine Maxwell. Streaming now, only on Peacock.